Well, I'm here with a pal, Stuart Anderson-Wheeler, one of the dynamic forces in the British gun trade. He's opened a new shop in London not that long ago, and he has been producing some really interesting guns. Stuart's got a background as a PH, which gives him some serious experience, and probably the most exciting thing that he's made recently is this 500 Nitro Express, and this is the gun from the Skyfall movie. Now, you may have remembered Daniel Craig shooting that from the hip. Perhaps not a good idea with the 500 Nitro Express, but I do remember the conversations when this all began, and Stuart was very impressed with the armourers and what they were looking for. Particularly, they liked the 500 Nitro cartridge. I think they said they thought it might have looked sexy. The story of it was that the gun was meant to be Bond's father's, but let Stuart take over from there. Tell us the story of what happened.
Well, the interesting thing was the armourers, they came down, they had a look at the store. I think they were looking at other guns around Mayfair. As you know, Mayfair seems to be the centre of gun and rifle making. I liked the fact that when they knew what they were looking for, and we had the right gun at the right time. The 500 cartridge, it's large, it's 3 inches, 4 inches with the bullet at the end of it. It's heavy, it looks good on the screen, and they were looking for something that Bond's father would have had as a double rifle back in the day. So he could have been in India, he could have been in Africa, but that was his rifle that he had. And it was lovely that when he came along, the old ghillie that was looking after the place, Kincaid, he said that an American collector had come in and bought up a bunch of the rifles, but there was one that he couldn't get rid of, and that was his father's old hunting rifle. There was a bit of confusion with a lot of people, because the 500's got such a large muzzle. I think a lot of people said, that's a shotgun. But for those of us that are in the market, once we sort of clarified the fact that it is actually a double rifle.
Well, of course it's a big bullet, so let's end this little clip with Stuart playing with his own gun.
That's very good of you, Mike, thank you. Well, Mike, thank you very much for coming by. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
And you. Well, just mount the gun without shooting the cameraman, if you would. Gun's
Certainly.
Clear.
Gun is clear.
And this guy and I have known each other for years, because do you know what? The gun trade is a happy family. It's a pretty intimate world, but we all know each other, and I think now we realise that we've all got a lot more in common than we had in the past, because there are external threats out there, people who don't understand our heritage of shooting, and we need to defend it. Anyway, this gun's not particularly new, although it was very innovative when it came out. It's the Blaser F3. Very interesting gun, narrow in the profile, very interesting inline mechanism, inline hammers, and a single trigger, and mechanism perfected by a great eccentric gunsmith called Sergei Popakov, a Russian, and he's an interesting guy, isn't he?
Yes, very. It came through the Iron Curtain when it came from the Kalashnikov factory.
Yeah, so there you go, came from the Kalashnikov factory. The reason I picked out this particular Blaser was, well, I thought it actually looked very pretty. Now here you've got something with medium scroll, nicely weighted gun I might say as well. Always careful where I'm pointing guns and making sure that they're unloaded. Never forget your gun safety. Very nice weight. Now, unless I'm mistaken, those barrels are a little bit lighter.
Well, they're actually the same barrel profile. Nothing has really changed there. But what you're possibly feeling is they've rebalanced the gun. You've got your, this is your sport version.
Yes.
You've got your stock balancer in the back, which possibly gives you the idea that you've got a little bit lighter in the barrel because you've got more weight in the barrel.
Now that is very interesting, because I did think the barrels were a little lighter than normal, and it's because it's got this clever balancing system in the stock and a well-balanced gun. Even though it might be a little bit heavier, always for some reason feels that bit lighter than a poorly balanced one. Blaser F3 deluxe version, medium scroll engraving, really nice gun. Well, I love this double 8-ball percussion gun, might even have a go on it myself. Patrick's also got the fabulous punt gun there. I mean, it's one of the best punt guns I've ever seen. Screw breech, 2-inch diameter bore. Unfortunately, 1 3/4 is the maximum you can legally use in the UK, but it's a beautiful gun, and it fires, would you believe this, 30 ounces of shot. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Patrick, tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, it weighs 140 pounds, so you know it's a seriously big gun. The barrel's about 9 foot long. We were lucky enough to sell a very similar one last year, consigned by the same vendor. It's a 1 3/8, and that was in at 3,000 to 4,000, made 4,400. And we've got an estimate of £3,500 to £4,500 on this gun. But it's had considerable interest over the weekend, and we're looking forward to a good result on the 31st of July.
Well, if you want a small cannon or an even bigger cannon, get along to Bonhams. Well, I've just taken the breech out, the screw breech of this magnificent William Moore and Gray gun, and look at that. That must weigh 20 pounds by itself. It is an extraordinary gun. Well, it may be called positive shooting, but do you know what positive shooters do when they want to relax? They go fishing. And this guy's Mr. Dillon, who is one of the great fishermen in the world. He is probably the greatest Maasai fly fisherman in the world. And I've been to his camp at the base hills of the Himalayas, and it was just a wonderful experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And we just bumped into him in Gunmakers Row, and we just had to do this. We'll find a place to put it in, because this guy is something special. He's a legend in India, and I'm sure he'll soon be a legend here. He is the ace guy with a fly rod. And I don't know if you know what a Maasai is. It's like a cross between a salmon, a tiger fish, and a goldfish. It's an extraordinary, big, golden fish, one of the sportiest fish in the world. And I'm not even giving him a chance to get a word in edgeways. We were so impressed though with your camp and the professionalism of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Not such a good year, I heard, this year for the fish.
Well, it actually was. Last year, the season was a great year. We had a 40-pound Maasai on the fly. In fact, your guy, Bobby, he was presented a fly rod by one of the clients, and he ended up actually catching the biggest fish of the season. Brilliant. Which was amazing. It's a 40 pounds fish on the fly.
Now, as anyone who knows who's been salmon fishing, fishing's not like shooting. There's no guarantees. When I went fishing with these guys, I caught 6 Maasai, and I actually hooked into an enormous fish with a guy called Bobby. And the only problem was I was on a cliff face at the time, and I had this terrible dilemma. Am I going to go with this fish, or am I going to get the penknife out and cut it free? And unfortunately, if I hadn't cut it free, I probably would have ended up taking a bit of a plunge, so I cut it free. But what really impressed me was the way that Misty puts his camp together, the way he trains his guide, and the sheer professionalism of the operation. And I owe him a thank you, and this is my chance to give it to him. So thank you very much, Mr. Thank you. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. And you'll notice here at the CLA with this film, and indeed with all our gun handling, we are really careful. Guns grow cartridges. The gun is clear, it's unobstructed. There you are. I hate to be in a gun shop with somebody pointing a gun at me, and I see it all the time, I'm afraid. So that's our little safety hint at the end of this. And as for these guns, one other little point about Stuart's gun, it's extremely well priced for what it is. So if you want a good value, 500 or 470, go along and see Anderson Wheeler. And he also makes a great bolt action 416 and 375.